Do you want to hit us with that intro music?
The sweet, sweet intro music.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Bianca, and my dad bought Burnout 3 Takedown one day, and it became one of the games that we actually played quite a bit together.
Hi, my name is Trent, and I got Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning in high school, and it's been a mainstay in my PlayStation 3 catalog ever since.
And I forgot I own that. Hello, welcome to I Forgot I Own That, but a special edition of I Forgot I Own That, where we're talking about two games that are near and dear to our hearts that we actually have played quite a bit of, not new to them, just coming back to them and telling you why we like them so much. Mm-hmm. So stay tuned for these sweet, sweet, gushy opinions about why we think these games are so excellent.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, we like to warm up by talking about the best thing that we saw this week. So, Trent, what was the best thing you saw this week?
So, I am not a big drink man. I pretty much just drink cider and nothing else, like hard cider and nothing else.
And I want to clarify, by drink, he's referring to like alcohols, not... Like, he always is thirsty
Breakfast,
for water.
lunch, and dinner, hard cider, nothing else.
He likes other non-alcoholic drinks.
This is accurate, yes. But when we did our anniversary dinner in March, we went to a local restaurant in our neighborhood, which is very nice, and they have really good cocktails. And I got this awesome cocktail that was like sochu, which is a Korean, like, rice liqueur kind of thing, like kind of sake-ish, but more of a liqueur. Some like fruity stuff, some like lemon, I don't even know. And then this super fragrant liqueur called churro. And I just like immediately fell in love with it because it's like this, it's kind of it's an agave-based liqueur, just like tequila, but it's also made with like cucumber and like some other like fruity things, so it just smells like sweet cucumber water and tastes just like that, and it's so good. And we saw that they sold it at our local liquor store we go to, and it's like a little steep for a liquor. It's like, I don't know, $45 or something. It's not like crazy, but more than we would usually spend.
Yes.
We're like a $20 bottle of rum kind of folks. So I swore when I get a job, because I've been unemployed for a little while, I would buy a bottle to celebrate.
Yeah.
And I finally got to buy my bottle, and oh my God, it's as good as I remember. I've just been pretty much just drinking it like straight with a little bit of tonic water because it's just so delicious by itself. Highly recommend if you need like a nice, refreshing, summery cocktail liqueur thing.
Oh, yeah.
What was the best thing you saw this week?
People.
People? Good answer.
So last week I talked about a Zoom call with friends. This week I'm talking about a gathering of real people in person.
People.
Well, my friends were real too. But
because there's entities that aren't even real anymore. Real people.
This weekend, we drove down because we have a car now. Whoop, whoop. So we were able to drove down. Oh my God.
We good, man. We good.
Trent's water glass just, I don't know what happened. Water.
I was gesticulating wildly at the concept of a car.
Yeah, and then water just kind of exploded out of the glass, but everything is fine. We drove down to my cousin and her husband's place to hang out outside on their picnic table because they have a picnic table outside their building. And so not only did we get to hang out with them, but basically all their neighbors from the rest of their building came out because that entire building is just friends with each other.
Yeah.
So we sat with a whole entire building's worth of neighbors and just talked and had snacks and drinks, and it was lovely outside, and it was very, very nice to just socialize with a group of people who I had never met most of them, but it was very, very pleasant regardless. And I also very much just love that entire building is friends.
Such a vibe.
Because we don't talk to our neighbors at all.
No.
And I would love for that to change. I would love to be those people who know their neighbors and are friends with their neighbors. And that's literally never been me, even growing up at the neighborhood I grew up in.
Interesting.
That I wasn't like friends with neighbors except for like Madeline, who lives across the street and who our moms worked together. So that's the one neighbor, really.
It is interesting because we knew everybody, like every house on our street and the adjacent streets. We pretty much knew everybody by name in my neighborhood. Like
there are a couple people that like my dad was friendly with, but that's the extent of it. There is nobody that I would hang out with, or that there's no like inviting each other over for like barbecues or anything. None of that. We just say depressing. Hi. It was our neighborhood's a little weird. So I just aspire to the kind of neighborliness at my cousin's building.
Yeah. Do you ever have that experience like now when you go to socialize with people, you're like, I don't really remember how to do this. Like you catch yourself just doing something a little bit just unusual or off, and you're like, ooh, I just forgot how to interact with actual human beings.
Meaning like emerging out of quarantine specifically?
Yeah, like in the last couple of weeks.
I know, because I am a pretty awkward social person anyway. So that's just me in any social situation. Before quarantine,
I see.
I will do things and I'll be like, oh, that was kind of weird for me to say. And then I'm like, well, whatever.
Yeah, I feel a little like rusty. Like I need to hone myself a little bit in the socialization sphere.
I keep crossing my legs on this chair that I sit on, and my feet, I lose the blood circulation and my feet go to sleep very easily. And so it's always a mistake.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway. So what'd you bring? What'd you bring for us this week for our first classics episode?
I brought such a good game. Burnout 3 Takedown. PS2 and Xbox, but for me, I played it on the PS2.
Sure.
It was developed by Criterion Games, published by EA Games. So,
sure.
Yeah. It was released in 2004.
Old game, but very, very good one.
Oh, so good. And it's a car racing game.
Yeah.
Oh, where do I start? Okay.
I don't know. You tell me.
I am about to tell you. So there are 3 main things you can do in this game. You can race, just the typical 3-lap, however many cars, see what place you get. There's the road rage, which has a gimmick that I will tell you about in a hot second. And there's the crash, which is you are in a car and you are presented with a situation that is maybe a block ahead of you on the street. And it's usually an intersection. And your goal is to basically ram the car into the oncoming traffic of the intersection and create as much damage as possible. Your score is based on the dollar amount of damage you do. And there's a bunch of power-ups and stuff.
Sure.
So the racing's fine. It's just car racing. That stuff doesn't really excite me that much.
Okay, I will say, because if you're not pro racing, I played a lot of Burnout when I was younger too, and it's a pretty good like racing game. Like it's very arcadey, but it's like a quality racing game. Please continue. Yeah, I know you're not going to talk about that part of it.
Yeah. But a cool gimmick that this game has, and what was I believe introduced for this game, not the boosting, but the takedown part. So there's a gimmick that the previous games have had called boosting, which is essentially reward you get for dangerous driving. You get it for things like driving on the lane of oncoming traffic or nearly missing crashing into cars or things like that. And so this boost meter fills up and you use it to propel your car so much faster than it could ever possibly go on a normal speedometer.
Sure.
Is that the word? Speedometer?
The thing that tracks how fast you go to. Yes.
I don't know why I doubted myself on that. So there's the boost, which is great, and you really need it in order to win a lot of things. But the thing that they added for this game that goes in conjunction with the boost is the Takedown.
Uh-huh.
So you can get rewarded with giant chunks of boost if you purposefully make your opponents crash their own cars.
Yes.
And it is so much fun.
Yes.
So you can use this to your advantage in a race where, you know, maybe you're kind of neck and neck for first place, and then you just kind of ram into your opponent into the wall, and then they crash, and that puts them however many seconds behind, and you get a few second lead, and that's pretty awesome. Plus, you get boost out of it for making them crash, which
It's a win-win.
makes you go even faster. But this is also fun for the road rage game mode that I briefly mentioned and said I was going to explain. This game mode specifically is for crashing other opponents. You just are in this kind of endless loop of a racetrack, and there's an endless onslaught of AI cars that come near you, and they're trying to crash you, and you're trying to crash them. And so you just go on crashing other cars until your car is so totaled that you lose.
Yeah.
So my personal record is 12, which I think is fine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I need to try harder.
Yeah, I would play Burnout a lot with friends when I was like way younger, like middle school era. It was a pretty hop and pick for hangouts with friends, and it would get pretty heated.
Oh, yeah.
I was never terribly good at it. I would especially get just wrecked. There's a particular map. It might be like a downtown Chicago map, but there's pillars in the road to support the subway overhead.
It's rough.
Yeah, that one's super rough because there's like, you have, 4 lanes of traffic, and in between the middle, not the middle two, but between the middle ones and the ones on the outside are pillars.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with both cars, and also
And the
pillars.
pillars.
So you can't like swap lanes easily. It's very claustrophobic.
And if you get like spooked and swerve, you could easily just crash into a pillar, and it's oof.
So that would always be my downfall whenever I would play with friends, because I didn't own it. So I was the noob always. It was fighting from behind.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I love the road rage. I love doing all the takedowns. Super fun. So that takedown gimmick is truly just the icing on the cake for this game. They also have a campaign, which is called a World Tour.
Yes.
So they have 3 regions. They have the USA, they have the Europe, they have the Europe. They have Europe, and they have the Far East, which is a little bit of an outdated term there.
Going to the Orient to race our Ferraris and other things.
Just yikes. So you have different, races, and you can do crash events, and there's, like multiple Grand Prix that you can do. And there's, gold, silver, and bronze medals depending on how each of those events are scored. You can preview special cars that you can unlock in the game somehow. I haven't unlocked any special cars, so I'm not sure how you do it, except for one of them. One, you have to like earn gold in all of a certain event to get a special car, and that's just too much effort for me.
Fair, that's fair.
There's other kinds of there's postcard collectibles in this game. So if you get certain medals, you can get collect all the postcard collectibles, and some of the events award you new cars. And this is another cool thing about this game that is probably present in the other games as well, I'd imagine. But there's this catalog of cars, ranging in types from like coupes to muscle cars to sport cars, specials, etc. And there's, I don't know, maybe like 8 or so cars for each of these groups. And you have a basic set in each one available to you at the beginning of the game, but as you complete the World Tour events, you unlock all these other new cars, which is really, really fun. And what I love more, I think, is as you do the crash events, the more there's certain kind of goalposts for how much money, like how much damage money you do. So as that amount increases, you unlock really hefty vehicles to do crash events with. Yeah. And I'm almost at the $70 million level, which awards you a city bus.
Oh, yes.
And I'm so pumped to use a city bus to crash into things.
Yes.
My most recent unlock was the semi-truck.
Semi-truck. I seem to recall there being a cement truck as well.
Oh, maybe. I think there's also a fire truck, which might be
Yes.
the highest one.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I'll come
so
back to
I'm just so excited about the city bus. I'm at like 65 million. I'm so close.
Very close.
So the world tour is pretty cool because you can just kind of do the campaign-esque stuff, win cars. If you like racing, then you can race to your heart's content.
I assume that's not you.
No, I do the bare minimum. If the race is like win bronze to unlock new events and that's it, I'll go for the bronze. But a lot of them are like bronze to unlock new events, win gold in all racing events to unlock this. And I'm like, that's not happening. That's not happening. And I guess that brings me to the one gripe about this game that I have is that in the world tour, it'll be like, it's a race, you and 5 other cars, and you're driving the car that you can potentially win as long as you win the race. But the AIs are just so much faster than you automatically. Their acceleration is kind of insane compared to whatever car you're driving. So you have like no choice in order to win, you have to use the boosting. And obviously the takedowns as well. But I'm just not good at doing the dangerous driving that awards me the boosting. I'm good at takedowns, but not at doing what gets me the boost. So it's really hard for me to find that balance of, okay, I need to catch up to these cars, but in order to catch up to them and take them down, I have to drive on the wrong side of the road and not die.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice in that way, and it's like a risk-reward system. The only Burnout game I ever owned was on the PSP, and I think it was like a pseudo port of Takedown, because it was a similar era. And I played the crap out of that game, and I will say, like, it's one of those games where the AI have some serious rubber banding. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're ahead, they just go unreasonably fast to catch up to you.
Yeah.
Just to continue to make it interesting.
Yeah.
And it does force you to get really good at like the drifting and the everything else. So you have to master all of the mechanics, if you will.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games where you really got to get good at it in order to get everything. And which is unfortunate because I don't see myself getting good at it. But, I will just keep doing the road rage, keep doing the crash. It's plenty fun. And the soundtrack has a bunch of really, I don't know, early 2000s, like punk rock kind of. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's probably got some All-American Rejects in there somewhere. I've looked at the soundtrack list before, and there were a couple bands that I actually recognized.
Yeah, my early music taste was heavily shaped by... So, I need to preface this. So, you know how there was the Tony Hawk's games?
Yeah.
Yeah, and those were, like, great and had awesome, like... punky kind of soundtracks with like actual music.
I didn't know this. I just know that these games exist.
Yeah.
But
those games are great.
Okay.
Those are awesome skateboard. They pretty much created the skateboard genre.
Wait, were you the skateboard game boy?
We'll get there.
Oh my God. Okay.
So there were the Tony Hawk's games. They had like the punkier, I can't give you examples because I never owned one, but I'm guessing like Offspring, early Blink-182,
sure,
like stuff like that. So the skateboard game that I had, well, I did have, I think I had Pro Skater 3, but the main one that I had and played the most was Disney Extreme Skate Adventure.
Ooh.
Which was made by the same people, but was Disney themed. Like you played as Disney characters in Disney worlds.
Was there Disney music?
No.
Oh.
So the soundtrack for this game was also mostly like popular music.
Okay.
And it was like, it was somewhere between like Radio Disney fodder and
Sure.
like pop punk, but like the lightest of possible pop punks.
You can't have too much pop punk in a Disney game.
No, there was also like a lot of like really just aggressively chipper stuff. But my music taste was heavily informed by this game because they had some Bowling for Soup stuff on there. They had I swear to God, All Star by Smash Mouth was on there.
Good.
And then there was a couple songs from Simple Plan, which is a terrible pop punk band. But I liked the songs that were on the soundtrack so much that I bought the Simple Plan record from Target because I liked two of the songs so much. And then that became like my angsty, like early middle school-ish jam.
You were a Simple Plan boy. Yeah. Ever so briefly.
I wasn't even that brief. God. I'm ashamed to admit it. Which reminds me, I don't know what Simple Plan's doing right now, but they've had like several live concert videos go up in the last couple of months as if they're trying to make a comeback.
Oh,
I don't know.
What are y'all doing, Simple Plan?
Trying to make a freaking comeback. I don't even know. And there was one that was a full concert somewhere. And I was just like, who is this audience of people? Were they paid? Because it was like a full auditorium full of people here to see Simple Plan in our Lord's year 2020. And I'm like, what is happening? And they didn't even, like, not to like point fingers or anything, but they didn't really sound very good live, which I'm guessing was always the case.
So, okay, I have a question.
Yes.
I mean, you said that Simple Plan is not good. Is that a universal, like, people, like you'd like the Nickelback, you know, everyone makes fun of Nickelback because Nickelback is not good. Is Simple Plan on the same level of understanding?
In like pop punk world, yes.
Okay.
Like that's like, because people think fondly to some of the bands that were around back then, you know, like obviously the big ones would be like Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco. You could talk about like All American Rejects are looked upon pretty fondly, or like Newfound Glory, or like there's all these other bands that people are like, yeah, these were decent if now dated bands and records.
But Simple Plan
was not one of them. Simple Plan, not great.
Rest in peace, Simple Plan.
And yeah, I mean, if they're still kicking, I mean, you guys do you, but I don't know what that says about your life that 15 years down the road, like you're still trying to make this happen. Wow. That was an adventure we just took.
I loved it though.
It's fine. This is a classics episode, man. We're chilling the fuck out.
Yeah, we are.
Did you have anything else to say about Burnout?
No. It's really fun to take out some aggression on computer cars.
I'm glad.
Yeah. What did you play? What are you bringing?
So this week I'm going to talk about Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, which is a fantasy open world action RPG. It was made by 38 Studios and Big Huge Games and was released for the PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360 in 2012.
Oh, it was on PC too?
Apparently. I thought it showed up later, but apparently it was published around the same time.
Huh, okay.
Who's to say? It was published by EA, so I'm sure they're like, make it cross-plat.
Yeah.
Get it everywhere.
Sure.
Seems to be an EA thing. So this is a game I really like. I've probably put over 100 hours into it across a couple different save files. I think the longest one I have is maybe 40 to 45 hours in, and like I didn't do nearly everything that was in this game. I don't even think I finished like the main storyline in that. I know there was like a big thing that happened. There was like a siege of a city or something that kind of was leading to the last chapter of the game or whatever, but I don't think I ever finished it because I have a really bad habit of whenever I come back to a game after a very long time, I just start over.
You do that.
Instead of just picking it up because I'm always like, oh, I won't know what's going on. I won't know what I'm doing, whatever. Which is, I'm not going to say is a good habit. It means I don't finish a lot of games that I've played a lot of time, including this one. So this is a game that's, if you've played other like open world RPGs, it's structured similarly. So like if you ever played Skyrim or if you ever played World of Warcraft, it's similar in terms of like structure. Like there's big world, towns, places, quests, things to do. You level up and you get abilities, and there's equipment and weapons and all that kind of stuff. It's very much in that same realm, though it's a single player version, unlike like WoW or something like that.
Yeah.
So this has just a stupidly large open world. Like, it's insane. It's like, I think it's technically only 2, but it's essentially 3 continents, because there's like a whole section that's up north, and then there's on the same like land mass, but it's effectively a different region because there's like only 2 ways to get to it from the top one. There's a whole like deserty region, and then across the ocean there's another like shadow realm kind of place. I don't know.
Sure.
That's purely off memory. I don't know if those specific details are accurate. And there's like Roman bad guys and monsters. There's dungeons to go through. There's lots of different quests. There's some really big cities, and also like small towns. There's some of the usual fantasy tropes, like there's the fairies, and there's their version of elves are called fae, but it's the same concept of as like a Tolkien style elf. It's essentially the same kind of race. So this game has a couple unique ideas that feel genuinely interesting in the landscape of fantasy RPGs. Like, they're different than anything else I've seen before, and they're executed really well. So the first is, this is just it feels like an action game in a really good way. Like, the combat just feels really good. I hate Skyrim, but even I don't think I'm unique in thinking that Skyrim plays like ass. Like, even people who like Skyrim admit that Skyrim plays like ass. Skyrim does not feel like an action game. It feels very bad when you play it. For all of its many other good qualities, it does not play well.
Yeah.
Would you concur? I know you are at least lukewarm on Skyrim.
Yeah.
This game, however, feels awesome. So similarly to like a WoW, or if you've played a Diablo or one of those, similarly you have like active spells and abilities you can use, and then you have your general combat. And the first interesting thing that I haven't really seen done before is you always have 2 weapons equipped at any time.
Okay.
And you essentially can combo with one or the other, and you can swap weapon mid-combo. So they're mapped to different buttons, and you can start the first half of the combo using a sword, and then do the second half of the combo with like a hammer or something like that.
That's cool.
Which makes it really flexible, which is awesome. That's kind of the theme of the game, is flexibility, but we'll get there. And then to add on to the combat system, there's also these special attacks you can unlock that are unique to each kind of weapon and are triggered around other abilities in terms of time. So there's a little bit of like precise timing involved. So for example, there are special attacks you can do straight out of a block, or after a parry, or after a strong attack, or something like that. So it's a really nice fluid combat system, and it just flows very well. It feels like a really solid action game, even though it's mostly an RPG at its core.
Okay.
So the other main gimmick is what they refer to as fateless. So this is like the main gimmick of the entire game. So the idea from a story perspective is, at the beginning of the game, your character was dead, and it was resurrected by like some, arcane dark magic shit. I don't know.
Sure.
There was like a mad genius like elf or dwarf situation. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So unlike everybody else in this universe, you do not have like a fate, a known fate. You do not have a destiny. So this kind of pokes fun at and subverts one of the usual like fantasy tropes of like, you are the chosen one, you are destined to
fulfill your destiny. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it intentionally subverts that in a way that is, kind of fun, but the way that idea cascades through other parts of the game works really well. So because you're fateless, this immediately informs the entire story. So the whole story is like, you're really dangerous because you don't have a fate. There's like a whole like clan or like type of person who is a fate weaver. And their whole shtick is they see people's fates or destinies and can help alter them. But like in this game, fate weavers are fucking terrified of you because they're like, what are you? I don't know what to do with you. Like,
there's no fate for me to weave.
I know. I can't feel the fate in my fingers. And then the fateless part also directly informs the entire like class and loadout situation in this game.
Okay.
And it's a really good in-world excuse for that. Like, some games might have a gimmick like this, but it doesn't make sense in the world. Like, there's no reason for it. This gives a really concrete in-world, like, lore reason for this to be how the class system works in this game, which I think is very smart. So the class system is like a mix and match a la carte situation, like totally free form. It's like a buffet. You can be like, I want a little fireball. I want a little tanky warrior thing. I don't know. And that also applies to the equipment. So essentially this breaks down into 3 groups. There is the like might group, which is kind of your stereotypical like warrior or barbarian, depending on how you want to think about it. There's the like arcane group, which is, spells, magic, wizardry kind of stuff. And then there's the, I don't know exactly what word they use for it. Oh, the finesse group. So it's like rangers and thieves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so when you level up, you can assign whatever number of points to any one of those trees at like any time. Like, you are not in any way restricted to be in one tree or another. So you have to build from the bottom in each tree, but you can build up to have, for example, you could build to be a warrior who also casts spells. So you can get, you can dabble a little bit in the warrior abilities, build up the ones you want, and also get some of the spell abilities or like casting abilities. Or likewise, you could be like a stealthy caster. So you build up in the stealth abilities, the finesse abilities, and then like build up your magic weaponry abilities in the arcane tree.
I like this because
it's really fun.
I feel like there's this unspoken rule in games with skill trees.
Yeah.
That if you are presented with multiple tree options and the game itself doesn't limit you to choosing one, because some do.
Yeah.
If the game does not limit you to choosing one, I feel like there's this unspoken rule that you still have to choose one and go with that. Because there are plenty of times in games where I'm just like, well, I mostly want this tree, but I also want some things from this other one. So I'm going to put some points in there. And then I'll be talking about it with friends and they'll be like, what are you doing? You're just supposed to do the one tree. Like with Borderlands 2.
Oh, I'm always in 2 trees in Borderlands.
Yeah, like I'm in multiple trees in Borderlands 2, but I don't even remember who I was talking to, but I was talking about it with like one of my friends and they were like, what? You just do the one. I'm like, why? Like, I want something for, you know what I mean? Like, it's very bizarre to me.
Yeah, I mean, the logic is you get to the better stuff quicker if you spec only one. And I mean, that's the same case in this game. Like, this game doesn't get rid of that because that's just kind of unnecessary, like a direct outcome of splitting up your resources effectively.
Like, I am fine with that being the outcome. I'm choosing that outcome for myself. I just also want those other skills that are not in this tree.
Yeah, you can have your cake and eat it too, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on top of the ability specking in this game, then there's an additional layer, which is I think they actually call it your fate. And it's essentially a class description. They're kind of gimmicked as like cards, like tarot cards, and there are a set of them that associate to every tree and also every combination of trees.
Oh, okay.
So what that means in practicality is if you spec only in the might tree, you will unlock all of the warrior type class descriptions and you get buffs for those.
Okay.
Nothing ever detracts or anything like that. It only buffs things. So when you do the strictly warrior class descriptions, you'll get buffs like better blocking or more armor or more health and things like that to make you fit more into that sort of warrior character. Or if you are doing a battle mage, so you are might and also the magic, you will unlock slower the cards for might, the cards for the magic, and then also the ones the set that is both. So though that might buff like your blocking, but also like your fire damage or something like that.
Okay.
And you can swap those whenever you want. So if you're like, I could swing either way, but I'm kind of like a stealthy magic person, like maybe in a specific situation you want the finesse card because it'll buff your bow and arrow or something like that. But maybe in another situation you want the magic buff, so you can swap those around as you want. That's like the last piece of your loadout.
Okay.
And then there's the weapons. Like you can use any weapon at any time, but obviously each of them fall into one of the umbrellas. So like there's the hammer, the sword, and the great sword for the warriors. There's the bow and arrow, daggers, and a thing called Fey Blade, which is like a larger dagger. I don't know. They play different, but a larger dagger essentially for the finesse folks. And then the magic folks have
like a staff or something.
Staves, wands. So staves are like melee, and then wands are strictly ranged. And then there's my favorite weapon of the game, chakrams, which is like bladed discs you throw that have magic.
Whoa.
They're so fucking cool. I've never seen them in
cool.
another game, but they're really fun. And you can swap between those as you want to. You can literally stop in the middle of combat and swap weapons if you want. I do that all the time.
This is crazy.
So what I'm building at here is it's a game that is very, very flexible. You can also, if you want to, you can go to a Fate Weaver and just restart your specking. Like get all your points back and just start like so halfway through. Like in the most recent game I was playing, I don't know if I want to tell all this right now, but I guess I will. So I booted up a new game. This was, a month or so ago. I was feeling like playing it. And I had a save file already at the very beginning of the game for someone, for a blonde lady. And I was like, this blonde lady looks an awful lot like Brienne of Tarth, as in the Gwendolyn Christie character from Game of Thrones. Brienne of Tarth is like a legend badass like warrior, but she's a lady, so that's like ooh spicy. So I was like, fuck it, we're just gonna role play as Brienne of Tarth for this.
Yes.
So that meant just specking all warrior all the time, which is something I would never do. I very rarely play as like the warrior fighter person. But then I got a little bit bored of that part of the way through, which is fair. So then I just like respect and did a split between warrior and like magic. So I did like a battle mage build, which was more fun because I just love using chakrams. They're so cool. They're exploding discs of fire. How can you go wrong?
See, why didn't we see that in Game of Thrones? I mean, as much as I love watching Brienne of Tarth totally kill everyone with her sword.
But where's her exploding flying discs?
Yes.
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah. I don't even know where I'm at anymore, but yeah, so you can spec as you will. You can respec whenever you want. So it's a super really flexible game. You can play it a dozen different ways in a single file with all the stuff that I told you.
That's crazy.
There's also like other pros about this game. The world design is really cool. So somehow they got R.A. Salvatore, who's like, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's like a super famous high fantasy writer.
Sure.
He's been publishing stuff since like the 80s, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Super famous in like the fantasy world. And he wrote all the lore and the story for the games. And the world design's like really nice. It's very colorful. It still looks really good on the PS3 today. Like it doesn't look dated at all. It looks really nice. Almost all of the NPCs in the game are voice acted. And the voice acting is really good, like consistently really good. There's also like fun looting and crafting. It kind of feels like we've been playing Diablo 3 a little bit. It feels exactly like that in that you have a chance to get something cool from pretty much any enemy in terms of like things. It's all based around like enchantments and like, special upgrades or whatever.
Yeah, I love that about Diablo.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. I think I mentioned this last week or whenever we talked about The Witcher. I like me a looty RPG. Yeah. This is a good looty RPG because you can get something good from like anything. There's a bunch of chests, a bunch of things, a bunch of places to get stuff. And then there's also crafting, which is you can recycle all the stuff that isn't useful to make it into something more useful, which I also like. You can make all kinds of stuff. It's really detailed in terms of enchantments. Like it's based off of materials. So you have like, say you're building a helm, you have like the base of it, what kind of leather, what kind of straps, what kind of rivets. And each of those you have different options and some of them are enchanted. So very complicated crafting system, I guess. Yeah, it's just a good freaking game. And then I did want to mention, because part of why I wanted to talk about this game is it has a really strange story surrounding it. So I mentioned this game was made by 38 Studios in Big Huge Games. So 38 Studios was founded by a former MLB pitcher, Kurt Schilling.
Okay.
I don't know what team he played for.
That's what I was going to ask.
I don't know, man. I'm sorry.
Why didn't you look this up?
I don't know, because I don't care. And also, he didn't do a good job. So, spoilers.
Fair.
So, yeah, he just made this game studio as like a post-MLB, I'm rich, this will be my passion project. Like, and I'm a good businessman. I can make money off this kind of thing. So he hired a bunch of like legit like industry vets and professionals and stuff from a lot of really good studios to put together his own. And they're like, we're just going to build a giant online multiplayer RPG from the ground up. So like a World of Warcraft style RPG, which is like just about the biggest project you could possibly take on as a game studio.
Oh, yeah.
All the assets and then all of the like server side infrastructure and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Really complicated task. So they're working on this for like, I think a couple of years, like building assets, fleshing out the game. They brought on R.A. Salvatore and some other guys to write the lore and story of it all while they were working on the tech side. And they started to run out of resources and realized, maybe we shouldn't just jump straight to this ginormous project. So they bought another game studio called Big Huge Studio, which had been working on a single player action RPG. Okay. So they bought the studio and all of its assets and were like, make this thing for us, which is going to be in the same world, but it's going to be a single player action RPG. We can use it like to introduce the brand and the world to people before we launch the big giant project.
Make
the big
some
giant
money,
online
get
one.
people excited.
Exactly. The issue is that was a very expensive endeavor because you just bought, I think Big Huge had like 120 or 150 employees. And they cut half of them, but still they bought the company and kept on an additional 70 or 80 employees. And we're like, okay, we're going to build this RPG. So they finished and released this game, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. And critically, it went pretty well. I think like Metacritic is above 80. It sold fairly well, like a couple million units. But because of all the other stuff surrounding it, in terms of all the costs they sunk into the online giant thing and the cost of the acquisition and how many employees they had and all this stuff, the studio closed like within like a year or two after this game came out. No. So this is the only game that 38 Studios ever had their hands on and released. So then the studio shut down and sold all of its assets to THQ, which is a pretty big developer and publisher. They have a couple different studios. They've made all kinds of stuff. But so they sold all the assets and rights to THQ. But to make things even more confusing and strange, EA, entirely different company, owns the publishing rights to the game.
So weird.
So that made it, I'm sure, even harder and more confusing to make any subsequent products in the IP of Kingdoms of Amalur, which is probably why THQ never took it on.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So I, did a little bit of boop research this week in preparation for the episode. And I shit you not, no more than 7 days ago, there was pretty much confirmation that THQ is going to release a remastered version of Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning.
This is nuts.
Like within 7 days of us talking about this. So I guess what's happened is THQ hasn't directly confirmed this. There was like some sly like sus tweets about like Kingdoms of what? I never met him. I don't know what you're talking about. Like some shit like that. But there's like Amazon and Microsoft, whatever the Microsoft like digital storefront for games is, like listings for Kingdoms of Amalur like re-reckoning or something like that. So it's pretty much confirmed that they're doing a remaster of it. It's supposed to come out later this year, which is very interesting, and I'm glad that's happening. So yeah, if you missed this game, which is entirely likely, it came out, almost 10 years ago, and if you didn't have a PlayStation or whatever at the time, you might have just slipped right by you. Get it when it comes out.
Yeah,
it's a really good game.
Remaster.
I imagine the remaster will be just as good. It sounds like they were talking about fiddling a little bit with the combat mechanics and then also, doing remastered visuals. Yeah, as long as they don't totally screw it up, definitely recommend getting it if you're looking for like just a fun RPG, get lost a little bit in the world kind of thing. Yeah. This is a really great option. It's probably one of the better ignoring that it came out 10 years ago, it'd probably be one of the better ones that's come out in a while. Like, I can't really think of a good, like, fantasy RPG of this scope that isn't, like, an MMO that has come out in, like, a while.
Yeah.
Like, the closest thing would be, like, maybe Fallout 4, but, like, I don't like the Fallout games either. I think this game's way better. Controversial and unpopular opinion, but
Dishing out the hot takes
really
here.
do not care about Bethesda games. I think they are glitchy as fuck and not fun to play, even if they are, like, well written and everything else.
Wow.
And even then, I mean, Fallout 4 came out probably like 6 years ago or something.
Like
It's been like a
yeah.
long ass time. So yeah, if this comes out, recommend it. Highly recommend. That's all I have to say about this. Yeah.
Nice.
Anything else we want to talk about in our first ever classics episode?
No, that's it.
Cool. Well, then thank you for joining us. We mentioned in the last episode we have a bit of a weird summer, so we're trying to accommodate that by doing episodes every other week, starting with this episode.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new game we haven't played before, just like we normally do. This sort of classics thing is a a special little snacky treat we'll do every now and again. But we'll be back with our usual format.
Mm-hmm. Trent, what are you playing next week?
I am playing Psychonauts, which is kind of an old school point and click adventure. It should be kind of interesting.
Nice.
What are you playing?
I'm playing Armello.
Armello. Ooh, I like that game. That's a good game.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Very good.
Catch us on social media at IFIOT Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. You will find our updates on there if, in the interim between podcast releases.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably, in those off weeks, I might stream more on Twitch, the Twitch, which I will also plug on the Instagram and Twitter. So make sure to follow us on those socials. And also leave us a rating on the iTunes.
Yeah.
We'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed the classics.